What's up, BEASTDOME Nation? It's Muntradamus here, and thank you for joining me on Beast the Odds. Tonight, we have a little special episode which is completely geared towards injuries regarding key DFS players. So you don't want to miss out. We got Dr. Jesse Morris in the house, and then the Beast of the Week to close things out. Beast!
Sure, you can duel with kings, but are you ready to be the GOAT? Fantasy sports just went crypto. Welcome to GOAT, the global fantasy sports platform powered by Digital Fantasy Sports. DFS Token. GOAT allows users to connect and compete globally with their DFS while playing fantasy sports. From thrilling pick'em games to the classic salary cap style gameplay to season-long fantasy and even live drafts, Digital Fantasy Sports GOAT has you covered. Visit GOATFantasy.com.
Welcome back to Beast the Odds, and we are joined by a very special guest who's going to be part of our regular program, Dr. Jesse Morris. Doctor, tell us who you are.
Sure, I am a sports medicine doctor. I practice in Florida. I am one of the co-owners of the Fantasy Doctors, which is a orthopedic or sports medicine, all trained physicians that analyze player injuries daily. We do all sports. Football is our bread and butter. So this is our crazy time of the year. Anytime an injury comes out, ideally within a half hour, we will have analysis and likely a video discussing it from an orthopedic perspective about what it means, when they'll be back, and how the implications for fantasy-wise kind of play on. And then as we learn more, we continue to elaborate that on every day and every week.
Well, I'm definitely glad to have you part of the BEASTDOME team for this season to help the BEASTDOME Nation. And let's just actually start right away with one of the cover guys. He was my number 2 fantasy running back this year, so everyone drafted him if they missed Kamara. Le'Veon Bell, he somehow ended up on the injury report. Tell us more about what Le'Veon's dealing with.
So Le'Veon actually got a lot more workload than I thought he was going to get in week 1. I mean, they really didn't, hold back. They just threw him to the wolves, and he looked pretty good. He managed to suffer somehow a shoulder injury that we really didn't find out until maybe Tuesday, I think it was. Good news is that MRI was negative, so it sounds like he's dealing with predominantly soreness. That's going to be a relative negative MRI because everybody's going to have a little bit something going on in their shoulder. Whether they were concerned about a labral tear or a rotator cuff tear, whatever it was, he was having some discomfort and some soreness, and they wanted to make sure everything was okay with their big money star running back. I expect him to get a little bit of a reduction in workload, but I don't expect this to be overly concerning. He might even have got a cortisone shot and then just tell him, continue to ramp up and rock and roll.
For those that watch him on Monday night, what type of hit do we not want to see him take?
The thing that would bother him the most, that should bother him the most based on what we know, which is not very much, is having his shoulder kind of driven into the ground, almost like a Tyreek Hill, like where he just kind of, his shoulder just kind of like pile drive. That is a lot of force, especially if it's a big dude on top of him, bringing him down. That would be probably concerning. I mean, Bell is not exactly a little guy, so it's going to take a lot of force to injure him, but that would be the most concerning in my opinion.
Okay, I like that. Let's keep going with the running backs. Joe Mixon dealing with an ankle sprain. What's your take on Mixon?
So I like Mixon coming into the year. I mean, he wasn't exactly healthy last year, but we saw what he could do with a not a very good offensive line. This year comes out strong and then rolls his ankle pretty hard. He got really lucky. He did not have any severe injury on the MRI. So he's basically dealing with a classic ankle sprain, grade 1, which is best case scenario. He is probably dealing with some swelling, a little bit of pain. He practiced it at least in some capacity over the past day or two. I expect him to play on Sunday, but I don't really expect him to get 100% of the workload, predominantly because ankles are prone to re-injuring and they are prone to re-swelling. They paid Gio a decent amount of money in the offseason as his backup, but Gio is a pretty sneaky, reliable guy in his own right. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did a 50-50 or a 60-40. And as much as I like Mixon, I think it would be in their best interest to kind of hold him out for a couple weeks, but I don't think they'll do that, unfortunately. But he should be pretty much good to go in about 2 weeks, back to 100%, as long as he doesn't have any setbacks.
Yeah, especially against that 49ers D, I'd wish for the same, that he would take the week off. So you're saying that as long as he plays and doesn't re-injure his ankle, he's going to be 100% healthy in a couple weeks, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I expect him to, as long as he doesn't have any setbacks. I mean, he's probably going to wear a lot of tape. He's probably going to have him retaped a lot. He's probably going to wear a brace if he can tolerate it underneath his pads or like up underneath his cleat. And then they'll kind of give him some breaks to make sure that it's responding like you want. But all it takes is one roll ankle, one guy stepping on his ankle while he's trying to move, and that's kind of a re-flare. The worst case scenario, in my opinion, would be re-aggravation and suffer further injury, kind of like Leonard Fournette last year, where he came back a little bit too soon, suffered a worsening, and ended up being a hamstring strain that time. And that kept him out for 6-7 weeks total. So that would be a bad situation. Hopefully that's not the case here.
Okay, and let's talk about Tevin Coleman's ankle in comparison. So what's wrong with that ankle?
So Tevin Coleman's ankle injury is what we call a high ankle sprain. So if you're wearing like a crew cut sock, a low ankle sprain is actually like in the foot on the outside, where you roll your ankle and you have a lot of pain and swelling on the outside of your ankle. A high ankle sprain is above the actual ankle going up your leg, and you have two bones that run the show in the lower leg, and there's some cartilage in between them. What happens with a high ankle sprain is that the cartilage tears and those bones want to separate.
Oh man.
Very painful, and this is not something you can run on. These guys are even in crutches a lot of times. And these take a good 4 weeks, sometimes closer to 6. So he will be likely 100%, but it's going to take him a good 4 to 6 weeks to really get back. So this is kind of the Breida Mostert show, unless they pull Wilson off the wire, off the practice squad.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting. So you believe Tevin Coleman's going to be back to his vintage self in less than 2 months?
Yeah. I mean, I think by I don't know when their bye is, but by like week 6, week 7, somewhere around there, they should be smart with him and kind of put him back. But I'm not overly concerned about this injury in the long run.
Okay. And then Mark Ingram, he practiced back-to-back days. Everything good with him? Anything to be worried about?
No, I mean, again, the kind of vague. We really don't know. All we know is shoulder. We haven't heard any specifics. We saw him look quite good last week, but at the same time, he didn't get as many touches, whether that was game flow dependent or whatnot. If they decide to kind of scale back this week, they may give Gus Edwards or even Justice Hill a little more looks, but predominantly because they're probably going to decimate this Cardinals secondary, and they may not need him. They need him to stay healthy. Important. I probably wouldn't start him if I was in DFS, or maybe a couple stacks, but I wouldn't go crazy on him because they may only give him 10 or 15 snaps if he's hurting and they're already up big like they were last week.
That's funny. So you're a Lamar Jackson believer. No running back memes for you?
If he even runs a little bit, he is going to be a monster. I mean, if Hollywood stays healthy and he's got a hip going on, as long as his supporting cast is solid, he has a potential to be very, very legit.
I'll say let's see how that goes, and we'll revisit that topic later. Let's talk about receivers. You mentioned Hollywood. I believe the star receiver that everyone's looking at this week is Mike Williams. What do you know about him?
So Mike Williams suffered a knee injury. The problem is they've been all silence this entire week. We know that the coach said they were concerned about this injury. The coach said they don't know his status for Sunday. That's not exactly good since it's Friday. But at the same time, he is pretty dominant. Keenan Allen is still the 1A there. They just lost Hunter Henry, so he's going to need to be important. I have a bad feeling that he's going to be out at least this week. I wouldn't be surprised if he's dealing with maybe a partial meniscal tear or something like that.
Wow, okay.
Because it's been crickets. Like, if it's just an MCL sprain or something like that, we would have known. If it was a large ACL tear, we probably would have known. So it's something in that vague area that they're like, can he play, or should he shut it down type of thing.
Okay. A few wide receiver stars a little nicked up. Tell us if it's serious. DeAndre Hopkins, what's going on there?
Rib injury, possibilities include bad bruise, fracture, or something called costochondritis, which is basically inflammation of the cartilage in between each of the ribs. Unlikely it's that because it was acute, but very painful. But this guy played the entire 2018 season, and the majority of it with a significantly injured shoulder. So if anybody can play, it's Nuke, and he probably has the top option, top potential this week. Not overly concerned about it. If he sits out, I'd be quite surprised.
Okay, but is a hit to the ribs, is that going to really do damage?
Yeah, I mean, if he lands on it, this is a very painful injury. As long as they're not fractured, which would lead to lacerations and lung issues and all that stuff, that would be concerning. But I mean, you rock and roll with him and just hope that he feels okay. But this is a tough dude. I think he'll be all right.
Okay, and then Juju, what's going on with him?
Juju pulled up limp at the end of the game last week after being locked down by Gilmore pretty much the whole game. And we find out it was a toe injury. Toe injuries can be a little concerning. The mildest of mild turf toes is still very painful. Mind you, this is what A.J. Green had last year, and he re-injured it, and then he ended up having surgery in the offseason. So the big toe, which usually is the culprit, has a tendency to be very important in stability and cutting and everything. The fact that he was able to practice the past couple days, I'm not as concerned in a monster matchup against a very poor secondary in Seattle, and he can bounce back tremendously. So I'm not overly concerned about Juju. I'm pretty high on him this year, and I think this will be a smash spot for him.
Let's round it up with a couple quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, he's banged up. Anything to be concerned about there?
He got really lucky. They stepped on his ankle, and his knee buckled a little bit, but they haven't said anything about the knee, which means he got lucky and it didn't have any significant ligamentous injury. Just a mild ankle sprain. My suspicion is that he'll rock and roll, and this kid's a beast. So I expect them to drop 30 to 40 points on the Raiders, regardless. So I'm not worried about him at all.
Yeah, guy's got a cannon for an arm. And then, last but not least, everyone in Cleveland was hoping that this would be their year, and then they get blown out at home against the Titans. Baker Mayfield's on the injury report. Do you think it's a real injury, or is it just an excuse?
Probably more of an excuse than an injury. I mean, he did take a lot of beatings. I mean, their line didn't look ideal. I think they have a better chance to show up against a Sam Darnold's team on Monday, but not overly concerned about the hand. Initially, they said it was shoulder, and then we find out it's the hand. He sounds like he played with a wrap for a day or two, and then he's been good since. So I hope they get their act together this week, because this offense could be fireworks if everybody's healthy and firing on all cylinders.
My BEASTDOME Beast of the Week. Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? LaShawn McCoy is looking like the slimmest Slim McCoy we have seen in some time. The guy is shaking, he is baking, he is motivated, he is amped up, he is on a beast offense, and he is going to be heavily involved in the Chiefs game plan this week. Yes, Damian Williams is still part of the picture, but there's enough to go around for both of them, and it's only a matter of time before LaShawn McCoy is the lead back. For all those that drafted Damian Williams in the second round, go ahead and trade him after this week. He should get some fantasy production, but moving forward, LaShawn McCoy is going to show why LaShawn McCoy is the lead dog and the Chiefs running back system. That is all for tonight on BC Odds. If you want my weekly rankings, my Monkey Night Fight picks, and my draft strategy, sign up for the promos below in the description. Send me a DM with your username or an email at beast@beastdome.com. Thank you to Dr. Jesse Morris. Play GOATFantasy.com. I'll see you soon. Peace! Beast.